Surprise! It's me! Should MAiD be focused on highly suicidal people since they seem to live in huge misery already? I don't think MAiD should necessarily be focused. I think that, like, what makes somebody applicable needs to be strict and thorough. But I certainly don't think people who are depressed or have mental health issues should be treated any less than somebody with a physical ailment. So, for example, I don't think depression should be treated less seriously than chronic pain. If that makes sense. That makes sense? I don't know why I'm saying if that makes sense. That makes sense. I know it makes sense. You know it makes sense. Everybody should get it. Of course, I'm just saying, like, you will show commercials and have demographics. Wouldn't this also be true for somebody who wants to die through? You would show commercials and have demographics. I mean, the data should be there if that's what you mean. And MAiD isn't something that gets advertised on TV. At least not that I'm aware of. From my understanding, MAiD is like, it exists, but it's not like offered loosely. It's like a very specific medical track that you put yourself on, either track 1 or track 2, and that can be recommended to you by a professional. It's not something that would show up on TV. It's not something that gets advertised. It's like you're seeking help due to your issues, and a medical professional like a doctor or a psychologist can make you aware that the program exists. I know MAiD is also like an uncomfortable conversation for a lot of people, and that's fine. But if you're being uncomfortable is not a valid reason to deny somebody their rights as a person, right? If you had a group of people that once they are shown MAiD or made aware of MAiD, have a high chance of using the service compared to other groups, would you then try to show this demographic MAiD more frequently, or like just try hard to make them aware of it? Good question. I don't think so. The demographics, so like if we look at the data from 2023 and 2024, right, which we have easy access to, and MAiD had been in place since like 2016, so there's like a handful of years of it building up, and you look at the data shows that the users of MAiD, the demographic is like 90% above the age of like 70 or 75 with terminal cancer. So like I guess that information might persuade doctors to bring MAiD up more easily to somebody who has terminal cancer and is in the older end of their lives. So, but I don't know how hard you would need to like try. Like you're a professional and you're already in that position. Like I'm not gonna be out in the street telling people that MAiD exists. You know what I mean? Well, I guess I'm kind of doing that now, but you know what I mean. 90% of people using MAiD are that old, but that might be just because there's a lot of old people. There is the boomer bubble, right, where there's the population is like staunchly the size of the population at this age. That is a factor, yes. That is in the data, and that would be considered. But I mean, it's not. I think what you're getting at is whether or not you would expand the program and make it more approachable for a larger demographic. But I don't know. And the reason I'm going to say I don't know is because I am not a professional in that case. So because I'm not a mental health care worker and I am not a doctor, I don't know if the program would need to be expanded. It was expanded from track 1 to track 2 to include more things rather than, because it was originally just terminal patients. Like, you're going to die. It has to be like reasonably foreseeable, a reasonably foreseeable death that you would give given access to this. And then they expanded upon that to add track 2 to say like people living with chronic illness and chronic like either physical or mental illness that have get approval. They apply, and then they have to get approval from 2 separate doctors, et cetera, et cetera. So that they expanded the criteria. So should the criteria be expanded more? I don't know. I suspect that people are less likely to offer or sort of bring MAiD up as an option, or are more, I should say, are more likely to make the option of, like, say that this option exists, but then dissuade people from using it based on their age. So I suspect somebody who's like 17, who does not have terminal cancer, and is made aware that MAiD exists because, you know, they have the internet or something, they looked it up. And they go to their healthcare professional and they say, hey, I'm interested in this program, I want to apply, and the doctor will say, well, you could do that, or here are the other options, here are the things that are available to you, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Whereas opposed to if they're like 75, maybe they spend a little bit less time doing that. But I don't think you would expand the demographic that MAiD is available for is specifically through professionals. It's not through like people's opinions, right? So yeah, I think if there was going to be any expansion, it needs to be done by people that are professional in the fields. Whether or not it's like, I think if you have a demographic that has an extremely high suicide rate, then you need to figure out who that demographic is and see if there's any solutions to ease whatever is causing that. And be like, okay, well, why? Which demographic are you talking about, since you got one in mind? Isn't the logic of MAiD to end someone's suffering, meaning the suffering is personal and not an external person can diagnose? Not quite. That's part of it. So, like, MAiD is voluntary. And MAiD is... The diagnosis isn't to diagnose pain. Chronic pain can be diagnosed. How bad the pain is self reporting. Right? It has to be. But you can still get a diagnosis. So yeah, there isn't a scale of you have to go through X amount of pain because we don't have a measuring system for that. Suffering can be mental. Yeah, of course. Like depression can be diagnosed, for example. Yeah, and mental health applies, for sure. The first time I heard of MAiD was from someone reacting to Tucker Carlson saying how evil we were for killing our people and worse things than that. Ah, yes. Leave the poor injured bunny to suffer and starve to death over the next couple of days instead of just ending its life. I was feeling down the other day, so I called MAiD. They said the first one's free. That's funny. So technically, if we had a young person, let's say 18 years old, okay, and they say they are experiencing a lot of mental health suffering, yeah, because of reasons, would this person be eligible to use MAiD service? They would be eligible to apply. So you have to... It's not like a program that you just call and they just go, oh yeah, okay. You go to... you have to get approval from 2 separate doctors. Well, yeah, technically anybody can apply. Technically, yes. But you need... They would be rejected. Yes, likely they would be rejected. It depends on like their medical history, and then it also depends on the professionals that they've spoken to. You have to get two separate professionals, so they can't be like doctors in the same clinic or whatever. You have to get like one from here and one from here, and then they both have to agree. They have to give the diagnosis. They have to agree that MAiD is an appropriate option, and then you are offered, like, they walk you through the program, and the program will like be like, okay, so have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? Have you tried this? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Right? And so if there are other options, those other options during the process of obtaining MAiD will be offered and made available to you. So if an 18-year-old says they're experiencing a lot of mental suffering because reasons, their professionals are going to go through and be like, okay, well, what are those reasons, and are those reasons something we can mitigate? Yes, no. I had the trans community in mind. Oh, well, did you? Color me a little bit unsurprised. They have the highest suicide rate, at least to my knowledge, so I wonder if these people would want to use MAiD. What do you think would happen? Do I think that there is, like, if we were to look at the statistics of MAiD as it is right now, which does include mental health, you're asking if the demographic that is not that, like that 4.4% or whatever it is, that is not the 75-year-old terminal cancer patient, right? Of that 4.4%, is the demographic overrepresented by LGBTQ plus people, or trans people specifically within the LGBTQ group? Yeah, if your sole underlying medical condition is mental illness, you are not eligible to apply for MAiD until March 17th, 2027. Yeah, it hasn't been. There are some things that haven't been expanded on yet. Oh, we're saying suicide. Yeah, I give up. Fuck it. Fuck YouTube. Suicide. People committing suicide. No, I'm asking what if you think they would be allowed to proceed using MAiD once they apply. If they match the criteria, right? If they match the criteria for MAiD when they apply, whoever they are and whatever they have, as long as they match the criteria, they would go through the program. The criteria being determined by the two experts. No, well, the two experts is part of the criteria. You have to get two experts as part of the process. You have to get two separate experts or professionals. That's not the only criteria. Right? The MAiD has its own criteria that the professionals are using. Right? The criteria meaning, like, for example, like what Jason said. Eligibility. To be eligible for medical assistance in dying, you must meet all the following criteria. Have a grievous and irremediable medical condition. So, you have something that it can't go away. Can't be cured. You can't fix this. To be considered as having a grievous and irremediable medical condition, you must meet all of the following criteria. Have a serious illness, disease, or disability. Be in an advanced state of decline that cannot be reversed. Experience unbearable physical or mental suffering from your illness, disease, disability, or state of decline that cannot be relieved under conditions that you consider acceptable. Make a voluntary request for medical assistance in dying. Informed consent is when you give permission to receive medical assistance in dying after you receive all of the information you need to make your decision. This includes your medical diagnosis, available forms of treatment, available options to relieve suffering, including palliative care, procedural safeguards. Right? Before a medical practitioner administers medical assistance in dying, they must satisfy certain safeguards. These include making sure that you, 1, have 2 independent medical assessments, 2, make a written request signed by an independent witness, 3, know that you can withdraw your request at any time, 4, provide final consent before receiving medical assistance in dying, 5, give advance consent if applicable. They must also meet extra safeguards in the event that your death is not naturally foreseeable. Medical assessments. When you make your request for medical assistance in dying, 2 independent medical practitioners, physicians or nurse practitioners, must assess it. Your medical practitioner must make sure that you meet all of the listed eligibility criteria. The second practitioner must also provide a written opinion confirming that you are eligible. The medical practitioner providing the original assessment and the one giving the second opinion must be independent. This means they cannot knowingly benefit from your death, hold a position of authority over you, be connected to the other or to you in any way that would affect their objectivity. Like, if you're concerned that MAiD is going to disproportionately affect LGBTQ plus people, I think that might be a little bit... it's a reasonable concern, but I think it might be unfounded. Hey, Jumbo, when you get a chance, swing back in. If you think these things are weak safeguards, I'd like to know your reasoning why, and I'd like to know what you'd be interested in adding. If you get a hot minute.